This dude is clearly taking a big dump. Like, he has to be taking a long poop.
He's taking too long in the bathroom. I don't know why.
What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 30-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid, but I'm reading them now as an adult on a quest to determine if this is a book series that we've all been sleeping on. And I'm not on this quest alone. I am always joined by someone who is a big fan of the Percy Jackson books. And this episode, I am joined by a repeat guest. She's an illustrator, a very talented illustrator at that, and a very talented illustrator who is doing the poster design for the first ever TNO live show we're doing in New York City on August 24th and streaming everywhere. Go to thenewsolympia.com/for tickets. It's Sarah Barra. Sarah, how's it going?
Hi. Thank you for having me again.
It is a delight to have you back. Many, many folks have asked for your return. They loved your perspective. They loved you talking about different translation changes of it would be in the English versus the Spanish versions. So I am very excited to have you back for what is a very intense chapter. We're going to be finishing chapter 7 and maybe doing a little bit of chapter 8, depending on how intense the discussion gets. But there's a lot of stuff that goes down in this chapter. Now, because you are a repeat guest, something that some folks have suggested, which I think is a very good suggestion, is asking people what their godly parentage is. I don't know if you've ever taken the quiz or just some general vibes, but since we've already asked you what your history is with the books, we don't have to ask you that. But now let's ask the fun repeat guest question. Who do you think would be your godly parent, or multiple if you can't choose just one?
Okay, so we actually use the godly parents, in Chile at least, as Howard's houses, like in Harry Potter. So we are very much ingrained with the fact that we are demigods and whatever. The fans here are very enthusiastic about that. I have taken 3 different quizzes. The one in the Rick Riordan's page and 2 from 2 different fan clubs. All of them said the same. I'm a child of Apollo. So,
okay. All right.
And it's not difficult to understand why, if you know me. Obviously, I draw a lot, basically art. And I also talk a lot. And I have a lot of confidence sometimes. So it's very much that. And also, I love the sun. I love summer. Everything related to that.
Okay, yes. Good. All of the good things about Apollo, not all of the gross good things. Yes. Hitting on people who don't want you to hit on them, et cetera, et cetera.
No. I understand that Apollo is a jerk sometimes, and it's part of the fun.
Sure.
But, yes.
I think the good thing is that most of the gods, I feel like everyone except for Artemis so far, has a bit of a jerk tendency or at least some jerk qualities. So as long as that's our baseline reading of gods, we can understand that when we're talking about the parentage, we mean the good elements for the most part.
Yeah.
I have taken the Rick Riordan quiz on readriordan.com or whatever the official website is, and I got Poseidon, but I will say I feel like I should take more quizzes because this quiz was not incredibly extensive. It's just a couple questions, and it's one of those quizzes where you can definitely tell what answer you're going to get based on the things. What's your favorite part of nature? The mountains? The ocean?
They ask you if you like blue food. It's obvious.
Yes. At one point, it's like, pick a color.
Yes.
So I might need to expand, but at least because I see a lot of similarities between myself and Percy, it makes sense. That's at least my initial read, but I'll have to keep taking quizzes and see if it develops. But that's where I'm at. Well, cool. Glad to have a child of Apollo on the podcast. So let's continue chapter 7 of the Titan's Curse, which is called Everybody Hates Me But the Horse, where we last left our heroes. They were just about to get into a very serious discussion to discuss what plan they should have based on what they just heard from the prophecy. So we've got our whole crew, and they're gathered around the ping pong table. Mr. D has summoned Cheese Whiz and crackers and bottles of wine that he is then forced to change into Diet Coke.
Yes.
I guess first translation thing, was it Diet Coke in your book or was it something else?
It was Diet Coke.
Okay.
That was the boring part because it would be like something different, but Diet Coke is just everywhere.
Got it. Yeah, last time it was Dr. Pepper turned into Diet Coke, yes?
Yes. Okay, it was Dr. Pepper turned to 7-Up.
Oh, it was 7-Up. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very fun. Okay, well,
that was confusing to me because I read them in English. So for me, it's But for my friends, it was like, why are you saying Dr. Pepper? I guess.
Someone recently, I think they said that in the Hebrew language edition of the Percy Jackson books, that it had something where it actually changed the plot of it. So in the last episode, we talked about when Nico watches the movie, the introductory film about the camp, he asks Chiron, what is the rating? And Chiron says it's PG-13, and that makes Nico very excited. Apparently in the Hebrew edition, he asks what the rating is, and they tell him it's all ages appropriate, and that's what makes him excited.
Wow.
Which is the 100% opposite. Like, that's a lot of liberties being taken.
Yes. Now I get, I know something about that movie.
Okay.
It's a thing. So I'm not saying anything else.
Spoilers, of course.
Yes, but that's intriguing that I will reread that part just thinking about that.
Certainly the translation change episode / live show for the new Olympian will happen. Totally going to do it. I'm so intrigued by all the changes already.
It's so interesting to notice this. I never thought about it because I read most of my books in English. But when I'm talking to my friends, minor things changes,
right?
But sometimes entire jokes didn't exist.
Yeah,
in this book.
Right.
And it was
like
what?
the guinea pig thing from last time. So I'm very intrigued. Anyway, back to this meeting. You've got Mr. D and Chiron. You have Zoe and Bianca, who has pretty much become Zoe's assistant. You have Thalia, Grover, Percy, Beckendorf, Selena, the Stolls, but no Ares kids because they all accidentally received broken limbs from the hunters. So narrator Percy then says that Zoe starts off the meeting on a positive note by saying, quote, "This is pointless." So
yes.
Love a sarcastic little opener from Percy Jackson here as our narrator. Grover is very excited because there's Cheese Whiz. Great. Maybe Grover's from Pennsylvania, but he puts it on both crackers and ping pong balls for snacking, which I think is glorious. I love this. And I had forgotten when I read this, I forgot that Grover ate trash as snacks. So this was a very fun reminder that, oh yes, Grover eats objects that aren't necessarily food as snacks.
Yeah, he eats things or objects when he's stressed. So this is very fun.
Yes, you're right. Stress is certainly a factor. We all stress eat. It happens.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe, at least for a satyr, it's better to eat ping pong balls than it is to bite your nails. I'm a nail peeler, and I wish I could break this habit, but...
Oh, I'm a nail peeler, too.
Which sucks because I know if I was a nail biter, you could put the little clear polish that makes your nails taste really bad, but I peel them. Ugh.
Yes, I do that, too. It's terrible.
It's bad. The problem is clipping your nails is also so gross. Like, I can't just have a nail clipper on me at all times. If I was ever like, oh no, I have the tendency to peel it, maybe I should clip my nails. The one thing I would also consider doing, I knew someone, the way she broke the habit was she had silly putty, and she would play with silly putty if she ever felt the urge to peel her nails. Mm-hmm. But silly putty makes your hands smell like crap.
Yes. Like, I wear a ring. The ring had spikes, so I can turn it and touch it and play with it without just thinking about peeling my nails.
Yeah.
And I also have, it's not a fidget spinner, but it's a cube.
Right, the little fidget toys.
Yes, so that thing helps too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'll get a little one as a keychain or something so I don't peel my nails. I'm 30. I shouldn't be peeling my nails anymore. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Now, Zoe says there's no time to talk. The hunters need to leave. But Chiron challenges her by asking, okay, where are you going to go? And Bianca pipes up to say west. And that's very helpful, Bianca. Thank you very much. We grasp that. You're on the East Coast. But Percy notices how different Bianca looks now. She has her hair braided like Zoe's, her eyes look darker, and she reminds Percy of someone famous, but he can't think of who. And it makes me wonder if we're going to learn about who Nico and Bianca's parents are. Maybe it is some sort of celebrity, but I just thought this was an interesting line to add in there, and I wonder if it's going to come back in any way, shape, or form.
Percy thinks about random stuff sometimes. I don't remember if that's a major plot later, but it's fun to know.
Right. And if anything, it's just a compelling and keep you on your toesy type thing about having a narrator who does have ADHD, because when you have those little tiny details, maybe it's just flavor text, maybe it's something that's planting a seed. I don't know, but it's cool because I never have the luxury of thinking something is a throwaway line because you never know.
Yes.
So Bianca suggests that 5 hunters go, but Thalia points out that she is forgetting the part that said campers and hunters combined will prevail. So then you get this interchange where Zoe says, no, the hunters do not need thy help. And Thalia says, your. Nobody has said thy in like 300 years, Zoe. Get with the times. And Zoe says, your. We do not need your help.
This in Spanish is completely random. It doesn't work.
Okay.
It used Spanish from Spain, so they all say vos.
Oh, right.
It's not old enough because a lot of people use it. It doesn't work that much. For me, well, I'm reading in English, so it's fun. But for people in Spanish, like annoying because most of Spanish people that speak Latin Spanish, we don't use vos. Probably just Argentina, I guess. Sorry, Argentina.
Don't cry for us. But I feel like, even though I didn't take a lot of Spanish, I've heard the vosotros of, ooh.
Yeah, that part.
So.
Yes. Nobody used that, just Spain, I guess. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess it would hit for some Spanish-speaking countries, but not every single one. I guess you're right. It's not necessarily the one-to-one where no one says thy. It's not even something where it's like, oh, yeah, people from England say thy. Nobody does anymore. It's old school.
And it's not an old thing, like a very tiny old thing. It's normal for some regions, so it doesn't matter.
The closest is that I guess it's perceived as very formal, but it's not exactly a one-to-one. The funny thing about Zoe trying to correct and saying "yer," she spells it Y-E-R-R-R, which is very much a Bronx, New York thing that you say in celebration or happiness or calling out to someone. You go "yer." So it's very funny for me to read a book written by Texan Rick Riordan, not intending this later usage of "yer" in the Bronx. So Chiron rules that, according to the prophecy, they must have representatives both from the camp and also from the hunters. Mr. D pushes against this, though, citing that the prophecy mentioned that one will be lost and one will die, so he wonders, is cooperation the cause of that? And this causes Chiron to ask him, whose side are you on? Which I love. I love that Chiron tries to keep a nice, professional, straight face, but he does have his limits to where he just kind of has to drop everything and turn to whoever it is and say, what are you doing?
Yes. Dionysus is one of my favorite gods in these books, and I love it. I don't know how to say this, but his character is very much what I like about Dionysus, and not the representation as he's a fat, big, clumsy guy that he's drunk all the time. No, I like this part, the snarky, the very intelligent god, and a lot of other things that will be around later, I guess.
Right. Earlier in this book, I wasn't as big of a fan because he was being rude towards the children. But in this particular section, he's just more indifferent and sassy, snarky, like you're saying. And I appreciate that more. So though I had some grumblings with Mr. D, there's a lot of moments where he's really funny in this scene.
He also gives another perspective. So it's a valid point.
Look, even if it's frustrating, it is good to have people with different perspectives in meetings. You don't want to have a bunch of yes folks around. And that's why I appreciate bringing things to Kelly or other friends that don't have my very unique sense of humor, where I love a gross pun. And sometimes people have to tell me, all right, Mike, that's a bit too much. Maybe don't. Maybe don't sell merchandise that says that. So Thalia begrudgingly agrees with Chiron that they must work together and appeals to Zoe that fighting against a prophecy is absolutely pointless. Zoe grimaces in agreement, and Chiron says that they mustn't wait because today is Sunday and the following Friday is December 21st, which is the winter solstice. And of course, the winter solstice is one day before Thalia's birthday.
Yes. And they have literally a week to do everything.
Again, this is just one of those things where, of course, it conveniently lines up, but at the same time, I love it. Give me the most dramatic, time-crunchy book. I don't care. I understand what I'm reading. I'm fully in. I know the rules. Let's just make it as obnoxious as possible.
This book is basically a shonen anime because everything happens in a week and everything is very important and everything is very huge and overwhelming. So yes, this is perfect for this age too.
Yeah. It even reminds me of 24, that old Kiefer Sutherland show,
yes,
where it's just in theory, everything happens in one day.
Multiple cameras.
It's so intense, that show. Oh, so over the top, but I loved it in high school. And what's very funny is, sometimes you just have to throw things to the side. Jack Bauer never charges his phone. Mm-hmm. Jack Bauer never eats. Jack Bauer never poops. It's okay. You got to realize it's a television program and we don't need to waste time seeing these things. Let's just brush it to the side. And that's what we got here. Is the winter solstice the day before Thalia's birthday? Of course it is. Yes, let's move on. Zoe is motivated to save Artemis now more than ever because she must be at the solstice, as Artemis has been one of the biggest advocates against Kronos and his minions and wanting to step in to stop them. And this feels very reminiscent of how I feel about some political situations where if you have to have an advocate for something that is so obvious, that is so frustrating. Yes. It's so ridiculous that we have to try to consistently convince people in power to recognize things that are actually happening and going wrong, whether it's climate change or diseases that are spreading or whatever it is. The fact that we have to keep yelling about things that are obviously wrong is so disheartening. And this is exactly what it just reminded me of. What kind of situation are you in that you're the advocate against Kronos and you're one of the few? Like, what?
The gods they don't like change.
No, they want to conserve things, if you will.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Dionysus seems offended and asks Zoe if she's implying that the gods don't work well together, and she just says yes, which I really enjoy. Zoe is gaining some appreciation points for me. Wasn't the biggest fan, but pushing back against this is very funny. And right after she says this, Mr. D says, "Just checking, you're right, of course, carry on." And I just wrote in my notes, "Don't make me like you, Mr. D." Yeah. This is when it started to happen, where he starts to become a fun curmudgeon, a curfudgeon, if you will. And I just really started to appreciate it. And I cannot wait for Jason Mantzoukas to play him in the TV show. He's going to be so
I'm so happy with that cast. It's perfect. It's perfect.
It's going to be so
good.
I
never thought about it until I saw it. And it was like, oh my God, he is Dionysus.
Right.
That's it.
I didn't think about it either. And then when I saw the reveal, I thought, oh, yes, correct. That is the correct answer. Yes. You are right. This is why people in charge of casting have those jobs. You've made the right choice. Chiron agrees with Zoe that Artemis's presence at the council is crucial, and he states that they must pick who goes, and Percy speaks up to say 3 and 2, and everybody is shocked and turns, and he clarifies that they should send 3 hunters and 2 campers, which I found interesting, especially coming from Percy. I feel like Percy would have wanted 3 campers and 2 hunters. That's also what I would have picked, because then if you have 3 campers, you could do Percy, Thalia, Grover, boom, very easy selection. Mm-hmm. But when I think about it a little bit more, because later as the chapter goes on, you do realize this is a quest for Artemis. So to give more of the preference to the hunters makes sense. And even though Percy didn't say that explicitly, maybe that's what he was thinking. So it kind of makes sense, but I was surprised.
I read this part as Percy starting to become a leader. He's not prioritizing himself to be himself in this quest. He's just asking himself, well, the mommy thing talked to Zoe, so the quest is for Artemis. So let's see how they do the quest with 3 people from the hunters and 2 from the campers, because they need campers there, right. Not because it's an obligation.
Right. And a 4-in-1 situation wouldn't make sense because this prophecy has already said that people are going to get lost, yes. People are going to die, so you need to have a backup in case something goes wrong.
And when the prophecy says you need 5 people, you need 5 people.
Right, totally. And again, the 5 people thing, such a convenient plot point that allows for a drama, yes. But I'm here for it. Who cares? It's a book. It's a kid's book. Make it fun. Now, Thalia and Zoe exchange looks, but then Thalia hands it to Percy and says, that does make sense. So now I'm trying to think, okay, because I had my predictions before of who was going to go. Of course, that changes it. Obviously, the breakdown is either Percy and Grover, Percy and Thalia, or Grover and Thalia. And I really didn't know which way was going to go. I felt like Grover was going to be in there, though. It makes sense, especially given that he wasn't around in the last book. I was thinking it would be Percy and Grover just because I didn't really imagine what the book would look like if Percy wasn't on this quest. But we will see if my initial thought was right. Spoiler alert. I was wrong. It's not Percy at all. So Zoe wants to bring all the hunters, but Chiron points to the prophecy saying 5, and Artemis saying that too many hunters spoil the scent, and that the prophecy says, quote, the bane of Olympus shows the trail. So Artemis was probably already on the path, thinking that the bane of Olympus is what Artemis was after. So she knew where to go. The hunter should know where she went. Shouldn't be that hard to find. So you shouldn't need the full crew. Narrator Percy then says the following, quote, everybody looked at Dionysus, I guess because he was the only god present and gods are supposed to know things. He was flipping through a wine magazine, but when everyone got silent, he glanced up, quote, well, don't look at me. I'm a young god, remember? I don't keep track of all those ancient monsters and dusty titans. They make for terrible party conversation. He's really winning me over, and I was so frustrated.
He's one of the best gods, even when he's very annoying. He's just fun. He's fun. Mm-hmm. He's the fun part of a party. So
at this point, I was starting to understand why some of my guests were more favorable about Mr. D than I was. So I get it. And I'm starting to see there's more to him than just calling people by the wrong name and thinking that Annabeth is expendable because they brought in Nico. Yes. There's other fun things such as this. Percy asks Chiron if he has any guesses about the monster, and Chiron has some, but he doesn't feel great about them. He mentions Typhon and Keto, but he says that they would be obvious. I am very much excited to talk to Dr. Moy about this in the Greek mythology episode after the fact, but what we learn in the book here is that they are giant ocean monsters, and Poseidon would have sounded the alarm if they were running amok. Chiron thinks that it would be a more elusive and potentially a more powerful monster, which is scary. Mm-hmm. You don't want someone that is stronger. You don't want someone that is sneakier. You don't want someone that is sneaky and strong. That's not good. You don't want that at all. That's terrifying.
Do you have any predictions for this monster? Any idea?
So I don't, just because I don't know enough about Greek mythology to really have a guess. Let me try to think if there's anyone swift but strong that you fight in Hades the video game. My only reference. But no, I feel like a lot of the people that you fight in that game we've already met in the books, all the different bosses. So I really don't have a guess. We do get to meet later on what's potentially afoot here at the end of this chapter. So I think we can just save it for that. But even meeting that person in the extent that we do, you don't really get a big reveal about what they're like and what their vibe is. But I would agree with Chiron that I feel like the evil is more crafty and less overbearing kind of strength. It feels like the person that would be in charge of the big things. They would be commanding them. And now I'm realizing why the name of this person makes sense in real time. So Connor Stoll then says, it sounds like you will be facing a lot of danger. And narrator Percy notes that it's very interesting he said you and not we, because clearly he wants to leave himself out of it. Beckendorf warns to avoid the desert because of the part in the prophecy that said, quote, lost in the land without rain. I think that's a good, astute observation from Beckendorf. Selena asks about the Titan's curse line. Chiron and Zoe exchange a look, but then say nothing, which, of course. For these two, of course. They are perfect for each other. Grover asks whose parent would kill their own kid, and narrator Percy reminds us about the whole 16-year-old Big Three prophecy in case anybody didn't remember or didn't read the first two books. He also recalls when he asked Annabeth, why don't the gods just kill me if I'm such a big risk? And then Annabeth telling him, well, some do, but they're afraid of Poseidon. So immediately Percy is worried. It's either me or Thalia, probably. But that makes me think it's neither of them. Okay. And I think that was already my guess. I was guessing maybe it's very tragic and it's Bianca, but I don't think it's going to be Thalia or Percy just because that's Percy's guess. And that feels like it would be too easy.
And Percy is usually wrong.
Look, if we're following the Harry and Ron principle of trying to guess what happens next, anything that they guess is incorrect. Yes. So if they have any sort of similarities, that property would transfer over to this book. But I just think it would be too easy. Okay. I feel like it's going to be a surprise thing. And I just don't feel like we would meet Thalia truly in this book and then lose her by the end of it. And I'm pretty sure Percy's going to make it through the next two books at least.
I guess that's the name of the books, so...
Yeah, it's not the late Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth. Narrator Percy ends this with a very funny line. I wondered if maybe I should have sent Poseidon that seashell pattern tie for Father's Day after all.
I want to design that. A very fun tie or something related. That would be fun. But yeah, that would be a very nice gesture to do to your godly parent. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if a tie would work with his sun-kissed fisherman vibe. Yes. However, if someone did go to a convention cosplaying as Poseidon from the Percy Jackson books, to have a seashell pattern tie would be really good. It would be a really nice touch to think, Percy did give him the tie.
Yes.
Chiron continues saying, there will be deaths, that much we know. And Dionysus goes, oh, goody. And everyone turns all at once, just a big record scratch moment. But we learn that he wasn't saying, oh, goody to what Chiron says. He was reacting to his Wine Connoisseur magazine, saying that Pinot Noir is making a comeback. So good for him. I love it. And at this point, I was fully on board with Mr. D. I like when he is oblivious or indifferent. I don't like when that creeps into him being rude towards young children that he is supposed to be protecting. But this kind of stuff is very fun.
Yes, it is.
Selena agrees that it should be 2 campers. Zoe sarcastically asks if she wants to volunteer. Selena says, oh, don't look at me. And Zoe hits her with a really good clapback by saying, a daughter of Aphrodite not wanting to be looked at? What would your mother think? But she does say, what would thy mother think? But still, an incredible zinger from Zoe. I'm really liking her. She's got some good quips.
I love Selena's reaction too, that she actually wanted to punch her and the stalls need to stop her from doing that. It was very fun interaction between all of them.
I agree, and I was very surprised, and it makes me excited for maybe learning more about Selena later down the road. She's got a little bit of feistiness inside, which I think is fun, especially given from what we've seen from Aphrodite kids in the books so far. It's just very vapid and, I don't want to play capture the flag and let me look in the mirror. The fact that she's got a little bit of anger if you push her buttons in the wrong way or the right way, depending on your perspective, I like that she gets a little angry. I think it's good.
Yep. She's a very interesting character and I like her a lot.
I'm very excited. And shout out to the Stoles for breaking up the fight. Beckendorf calls for everyone to knock it off, and he says, let's first choose the hunters. Zoe says that she will go, and she nominates Phoebe, who is apparently a big girl that has been hitting people in the head and put arrows through Connor Stoll's helmet, and I'm assuming that this is the person that was arm wrestling with Bianca and the person who was getting into the basketball fight. Not for sure, because she wasn't named prior, but this is at least my headcanon. This has been Phoebe the whole time.
Yes.
And after the Phoebe nomination is put forth, Travis Stoll says that they have a shirt for her that they saw her admiring in the camp store. Apparently it is a shirt that says, Artemis the Moon Goddess, Fall Hunting Tour 2002, with a list of national parks underneath. Amazing.
Another piece of clothing that I need to do.
I mean, Disney, please make this. Please.
I'm taking notes and I'm adding so many things to do.
Just asking to be made. I would love to make these merchandise items if I didn't fear getting sued by the House of Mouse.
Yes.
But that would be such a good one. And Narrator Percy, just like I was, is a little uncertain about this suggestion. He thinks if they are so likely to give this shirt to her, clearly it's got to be some sort of prank. But he doesn't know what the prank is, and the hunters don't think that anything is afoot. So Zoe takes the shirt, and then she says that the final hunter selected will be Bianca, which they find surprising. I don't find too surprising, but I guess for different reasons. My lack of surprise is that no other hunter has been named. Their surprise is that Bianca has been a hunter for 4 seconds. So yeah, I guess I'm coming at it from the perspective as a reader. I fully understand why the characters are surprised, though.
This is a book for children.
Bianca is nervous, but Zoe says that it will be a great way for her to prove herself, but of course she says thyself. And Percy feels for her because he thinks back to his first quest and how he felt very honored to be given the quest, but he also felt wildly unprepared and very scared. And I'm realizing that rhymed. Chiron asks which campers should go, and he makes eye contact with Percy that Percy can't translate. He doesn't know if this is you should go or you should not go. eye contact. But regardless, it's not fast enough because Grover springs up immediately to nominate himself. He does so because he really wants to help Artemis. But that aside, I feel like he's a good fit. He has experience with going out on quests. He's a satyr. This is his whole thing. He's very good at nature, so his skills will translate. So I think he's a great selection for the quest, just objectively.
Yes.
Zoe doesn't approve, though, because he's not a half-blood, but Thalia steps in to say he is a camper, and that's all that matters. And she reveals what I just said, his satyr skills would come in handy. And in order to prove it, Thalia asks Grover if he knows how to play any tracker songs, and he confirms that he does, and that impresses Zoe, so she accepts his self-nomination.
I wonder, what are tracker songs?
Yeah, I really want to know.
What are those?
I'm assuming it's some sort of song that maybe helps you find the way. Maybe it's something.
Maybe, I don't know. Grover's songs are not like particularly anything related to a quest or anything like that, but sometimes it's just, if he just plays something and I'm okay, but that will be interesting to translate, I guess,
right,
to a media like the TV show. Like, what are you playing?
I'm sure that a tracker song probably has some sort of magic that shows you the way. Maybe it echoes in a way where you follow the sound of the song. Maybe it's like an echolocation type of thing. Or maybe it makes the leaves rustle and you follow the rustling leaves and that lets you know where to go. But it would be funny if it was just a regular song that had something to do about moving. Maybe
Yes.
It's The Proclaimers, I Would Walk 500 Miles. Maybe it's 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. You know, it could just be something about traveling very far. Maybe it's Keep Moving by Jungle, which just as a chorus that says keep moving, you know.
I hope these songs are in the show.
I mean, it's Disney. They should be able to pay for a good needle drop.
Yeah.
They should be able to get a good song. But that would be my guess. Maybe we'll learn later. Who's to say? Thalia then nominates herself as camper number 2, and nobody protests against this. But narrator Percy then says, now, okay, maybe my math skills weren't the best, but it suddenly occurred to me that we'd reached the number 5 and I wasn't in the group. So then he pipes up and goes, whoa, hold on. I want to be on the quest too. And Grover immediately offers up his spot so that Percy can take his place because Grover thinks Percy has to be on this quest. Grover is too pure. He is too kind. Grover is much better suited for this quest than Percy. As much as I love Percy, Grover is the better selection here. But he's such a good friend. Goodness gracious, I love Grover.
And he knows that Percy needs to go because his own reasons. Mm-hmm. But it's not a different case from Grover's reasons. So it doesn't matter. He's just good. He's just too good.
Right. And even at the end of the day, they are really trying to find Artemis. Yes, Annabeth is gone too. But the bigger concern is Artemis. It truly is a quest for her. So Grover's ambition to help Artemis should technically outrank Percy's for Annabeth, even though, personally, I disagree because I care more about Annabeth than Artemis. Just met Artemis. I know she's very cool and I'm a big fan, but I'm very invested in Annabeth's well-being. Sorry. Zoe does not approve of Percy joining, though, because he is a boy, and she won't have hunters traveling with a boy. And Percy then reminds her, well, you just did travel with a boy to Camp Half-Blood, but Zoe goes, that was just an emergency, and it was a direct order from Artemis. Percy then brings up, well, Grover's a boy, but Zoe says he's a satyr, so he doesn't count, which, okay.
That doesn't go well. Nope. I hate that part.
There's been a lot of satyr disrespect in this book. He was deemed too furry to drive. Now he's not really a boy. I feel bad for my satyrs.
And he's too pure. Why?
Right. If all the satyrs are as pure as Grover, they are being much too maligned. It is not fair. Justice for satyrs.
I think it's just Grover. But yeah.
No. Yeah, I don't know how cool the Cloven elders are, but I'm a big Grover guy.
Yes.
Big Grover guy over here. Pro-Grover, Prover podcast over here. Percy says that he has to go on this quest, in italics. Zoe asks, why? Because of thy friend Annabeth? And that causes Percy to blush and say, no, I mean, partly, I just feel like I'm supposed to go. And what's crushing is that no one defends Percy. Yeah. Absolutely no one steps in, which is tough. The closest thing is that Bianca gives him a look of pity, But Zoe shuts it down, saying that she will take a satyr if she must, but not a male hero. And Chiron reluctantly agrees because the quest is for Artemis, so the hunters should be allowed to choose their companions. And Percy's ears are ringing, and he can feel that Grover and some of the others are giving him sympathetic looks, but he can't make eye contact with them because, and this is just me interpreting, because he knows that he would cry if he did, because that's at least what I would do if I was in this situation and I made contact with someone trying to pity me for me being embarrassed and frustrated and all that. Ooh, I would get choked up. So I can totally sympathize with Percy keeping his eyes directly looking at the ground and not any of his friends. Chiron then concludes the meeting saying that the crew will leave tomorrow, and he wishes them good luck. And since this meeting is concluded, let's conclude the first part of this episode and take a little bit of a break for the Titan's Purse, where we talk about cool stuff, such as that live show that we mentioned, where you can get the poster that you're designing, and we're not selling it online. It's just at the show, so you gotta go. Hello and welcome to the Titan's Purse. I hope you are excited to be here. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm also really excited by the fact that we have 960 patrons at the time of recording, inching us ever so close to the 1,000 patron goal, which means Stephen Parra and I will do a Hades the Video Game stream. Yes, I will be turning Stephen Parra into Streamin' Parra, and we will do a fun night of Hades playing only for patrons. You will only get to watch this if you are a patron, so head on over to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon, join any tier, anything at all. You'll get access to the Discord, bonus episodes, director's commentary, live streams. Depending on what tier you have, there's so many fun things. There's physical merch. There are exclusive stickers and exclusive enamel pins and exclusive holographic stickers. And if you join the Olympic Court, you can shape future episodes. So many wonderful things, and you will help us get closer to doing that patron stream, which I would really like to do during the month of August, because for both my life and Steven's life, that would be very helpful. So please head on over to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon and join, just because if we could do it in August, that would be really super nice. So you'd be helping us out a whole heck of a lot. Anyway, there's other cool things happening in August, notably the first ever TNO live show. We keep talking about it, but I won't stop talking about it until it's over. August 24th, we are doing a live show at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time in New York City. We are also live streaming that show wherever the internet is sold, which means you can watch it, because if you're listening to this, that means you can watch the stream. You also get access to a 1-week replay of the stream. So even if that day or time is inconvenient for you, do not worry, because you can watch the show and watch it multiple times if you want. Do whatever you want to do. I'm not your mom. Whether you want to get tickets in person, which if you're thinking about it, you should get on it. We've sold 130 tickets and the venue only has 160 seats. So hurry your butt up. Otherwise, your butt won't be able to sit in a chair at the show. And I don't think they're going to be doing standing room only stuff. Or if you want to watch the stream, either way, go to thenewestolympian.com/live. You will also find tickets to our future shows. We're doing another live stream of a half Potterless, half TNO show on August 31st. So if you can't get enough of the streamed goodness, you can get more of the streamed goodness. Lots of fun shows going through the end of the year, and we're going to be doing shows next year too. It's going to be very fun. Speaking of fun, the folks who have joined the Patreon are having a whole bunch of fun with that bonus content that I talked about earlier. They're getting discounts to the live stream. They're having a blast in the Discord. So many things they have access to, so many wonderful people in the group, and I want to give a shout out to the newest members of our team. So shout out to our new Super God tier patrons, the biggest of the big three, Abigail Johnson, Amber Hayer, and Johnny... Johnny asked that I read out their name as long as I could hold it, and I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty impressed with how long I held that. Shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Marianne, Katie, Mia Sterick, Emily Rothdahl, Richard Graham, and oh joy, it's Gabby. And shout out to our newest demigod tier patrons, Houdini, son of Hermes, Summer LaBelle, Claire K, Liz, Fetzy, That One Ginger, Anna Noel, Aimee Marie Gedge, Bran Natel, Ale, Franziska Zarl, Baked ZD, Benjamin and Emily Solinger, and Kaylee Evans. And also shout out to Samantha Marquardt, who upgraded to the Super God tier. Thank you all so much for your support. May Aphrodite bless you to make sure that when you're having an important conversation with someone that you don't have something stuck in your teeth and that your teeth look great and wonderful. And if you're all caught up on the News Olympian, you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, I make a whole bunch of podcasts. You can find out about all of them at my personal website, Shubs. It's schub.es. If my shows aren't enough, you still need more, well, then you should check out some wonderful shows from Multitude. Multitude makes a whole bunch of wonderful podcasts, and one of those wonderful podcasts is Exolore, which is hosted by Dr. Moya McTeer, who you might recognize from our Greek mythological episodes of The Newest Olympian. If you've ever wondered what life would be like on a planet different from our own, or how writers create your favorite fictional worlds, Exolore is the pod for you. Every other week, week, astrophysicist/folklorist Dr. Moy McTeer explores fictional worlds by building them with a panel of expert guests, or interviewing professional world builders, or reviewing the merits of worlds that have already been built. You will learn, you will laugh, and you will gain an appreciation for how special our planet really is. You can subscribe today by searching for Exolore in your podcast app, EXOLORE, or going to exolorepod.com. And before we wrap up here, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of these ads will be read by me, others of them won't. The ones that are not read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Uruguay, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Spanish, but do be surprised if they use Vosotros, because I don't think that they do that there. But once these ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of the newest Olympian. And we're back. Percy doesn't show up for dinner that night, but Chiron and Grover come to him anyway because they are good friends. Grover apologizes for taking Percy's spot, which is not something that he has to apologize for doing. And Grover is just on the verge of tears. Just time and time again, he proves to be such a good friend. No one deserves Grover. He's too good for all of us.
He's too good. And he's chewing up Percy's mattress because he's nervous. So we established that Grover eats when he's nervous, but he eats stuff. So he's doing that to Percy's couch, I guess.
Does he actually chew it up, or did Percy just worry that he was going to chew it up? I thought Percy was just afraid that was going to happen.
Oh, yeah, he was worried he will do that. But that's part of Grover's personality, that he do that all the time. So
yeah, the threat is still there. The point stands. Even if he didn't do it, Percy knew it was looming. It was a possibility.
Yes.
Percy says that it's fine, but narrator Percy reveals that it's a lie, because when you read it in the book, it says, it's okay, I lied. Really, it's fine. And I love when they do this. This has happened a couple times throughout the series so far, and it's just so good. It's such a great way to write it that really drives home how Percy's feeling, and we've all done that. We've all said it's fine when we mean it's not fine at all.
Yeah, narrator Percy is very interesting to read too, besides the things that he do. The thing that he think about and the things that he also get and try to understand are very different from the situation that is happening. So it's quite interesting to see. It's very fun.
It's a good way for us to see what Percy is thinking, even if his actions speak differently. And I think it's just a really powerful way to write the book. I think a first-person narrator, especially for this type of book, really goes a long way. And it helps us truly understand Percy's thought process, Percy's personality, all these sorts of things, because a big part of being a human is sometimes having to go along with things or say things that don't agree with how you feel inside because you don't want to be rude, or, you know, the situation's out of your hand. So it helps us sympathize with Percy as well. Grover, after revealing that he feels guilty like he took Percy's spot, commits to finding Annabeth and promises that he will look everywhere for her. Chiron then asks Grover to step out for a moment and very much implies that he wants to speak to Percy alone, but Grover doesn't get it at first, which is really sad. Grover says, "Oh, you mean alone? Sure, Chiron." And then he looks at Percy miserably and says, "See, nobody needs a goat." Which, no, Grover, don't be so hard on yourself. We all need you. Grover, no.
He's too pure. I can't. I love him so much.
Grover. We got to raise that Grover self-esteem. You're so good, Grover. Don't think down on yourself. We all love you. Chiron then opens by saying he doesn't pretend to understand prophecies, and that Thalia wouldn't have been his first choice since she is too impetuous. And Percy asks if Chiron would have chosen him, and Chiron says, no, because you're too similar to Thalia.
Yes.
Again, honesty from Chiron, appreciate it. Sometimes you don't need to sugarcoat things, you gotta just be direct, and I respect it. Percy then says, thanks a lot, and Chiron smiles, and he continues to kind of put Percy at ease here, saying that the difference between Percy and Thalia is that he is less sure of himself than Thalia is of herself, which can either be good or bad. But the one thing that Chiron knows for certain is that them together is dangerous, and Percy tries to push back, saying that they could have handled it. Chiron says, the way you handled it at the creek tonight, which is supremely valid, and Percy has no reply, and narrator Percy says, I didn't answer, he nailed me. Look,
Yep.
When you know that you've got, you got to recognize that you got, game recognize game.
Yes. It's very funny to see that Percy is starting to understand that he actually messed up most of the time. And during this entire book, he does that. He's starting to recognize that he's not the chosen one, as in the first book, for example.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He recognizes that he's not infallible, and I think that just makes him even more lovable. We love a self-aware main character. Chiron looks for silver linings, which is one of my favorite things to do. So I love that he went this route. He says maybe it's best because now Percy can go back to Sally and spend the winter holiday with her, and he can be called upon if he's needed. Percy, dejected, says, yeah, maybe. And then he puts Riptide on his nightstand. And as the narrator says, it didn't seem that I'd be using it for anything but writing Christmas cards, which is funny and sad at the same time. Chiron looks at Riptide and then realizes that it's no wonder that Zoe doesn't want Percy joining when he has that weapon. And Percy's confused, but then he remembers Chiron telling him that the sword has a long and tragic history when he first gave Riptide to Percy. And Percy wants to ask him about it, but of course, Chiron doesn't let him because Chiron only cares about suspense. And instead, he hands a drachma to Percy and instructs him to call his mom to tell her what's up.
Perfect timing.
Of course, Chiron does. Of course. He is serving drama at all times. That's his number one concern. Classic Chiron.
Time to not answer questions. Yeah, that's it.
Unless the plot allows for it.
Of course.
He's not going to answer a question. Before leaving, Chiron reveals that he almost volunteered himself for the quest. But the last line in the prophecy didn't give him hope because it said, quote, one shall perish by a parent's hand. And knowing what we know, and Percy explains this to the reader about his dad being Kronos, maybe not the best person to send on the mission if you're guaranteeing that Kronos is going to kill Chiron. So probably the right call. Now here in my notes I wrote, oh, here we go. Because Percy asks Chiron, what's the Titan's curse? And I don't know why I got my hopes up, because all Chiron does is the claw to ward off evil motion. And then he says that he hopes the prophecy does not mean what he thinks it does. And then he leaves. Of course. Of course. Why would I think anything else? Why would I be so foolish?
We all thought about it. I thought about it too. It was like, oh yeah, the Titan's curse. And then nothing. Okay, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But again, I appreciate Percy asking these questions. Better to ask and have them unanswered than just not ask them at all. Chiron wishes Percy goodnight, and he says that, quote, his time will come, which Percy feels like is said in a tone that implies his death will come. So just a great final note to leave the cabin on. Percy does then do an iris call to Sally, and he clarifies that she's in the Upper East Side, which is interesting because we learned that they're going to school in the Upper West Side. So I'm guessing that they are on the very western edge of the Upper East Side, because otherwise, why would he be zoned to a school in the Upper West Side? Anyway, New York geography aside, the iris message begins. Now, when the iris message goes through, we see that Sally very much appears to be on a date. There's a dude over. Percy says he looks like an actor who could play an undercover cop. They've got bottles of wine going. It's a very interesting scene. Apparently, this dude's in his late 30s. Very interested about what's going on. He goes to the bathroom and then Percy yells, "Mom!" And that startles Sally. And Percy asks what she's doing. And she says homework, which, all right, wine and homework?
That's not a very good phrasing for that.
Yeah, come on, Sally. We see through your lies.
Yeah.
She then goes on to say that Paul, or Mr. Blowfish, is in her writing seminar, and Percy asks, Mr. Blowfish? And she corrects Blowfish, and then asks Percy what's wrong. Percy tells her what's up, and as the narrator reveals to us, that it mostly centers on Annabeth, which is true to form, and I appreciate that Percy doesn't really shy away from letting his love towards Annabeth be known to his mom.
I love that Sally actually teared up with this because she also loves Annabeth a lot.
She does.
It's so cute.
And I don't know how much he revealed. I don't know how much time passed, but if he was able to kind of tell the full story, this dude is clearly taking a big dump. Like he has to be taking a long poop.
He's taking too long in the bathroom. I don't know why.
Because there's no way in 15 to 30 seconds. He's like, okay, anyway, I was at school. Remember you dropped me off? And then there's no way. So this guy must be having a tough time in Sally's bathroom. Sally says that as much as she wants Percy to come home, he must do what he thinks he has to. And this really surprises Percy and also me. She explains that if deep down he feels that he needs to save her, then he ought to, because his heart is always in the right place. And Percy asks, "Are you telling me to go?" And then Sally kind of deflects, but simply says that he's too old to have her tell him what he can and cannot do, and she will support whatever choice he makes, even if that choice is a dangerous one. The toilet then flushes, and she says there's no time, but she says she loves Percy and that she knows he will do whatever is best for Annabeth. It's really interesting. Percy asks her, "How can you be so sure?" And Sally says that it's because Annabeth would do the same for him, which is so sweet.
It's just so pure.
It's so good. What a pure chapter we have here. Sally and Grover. The best. And then, narrator Percy says, and with that, my mother waved her hand over the mist, and the connection dissolved, leaving me with one final image of her new friend, Mr. Blowfish, and he calls him Mr. Blowfish, smiling down at her. So I like that Sally has a sweet guy over. I hope that he doesn't turn out to be some sort of evil, putting up a good face, but is actually evil behind-the-scenes guy. Maybe he's just a nice, charming, good-looking dude who enjoys a good glass of Pinot Noir, perhaps. Oh, it's making a comeback, according to Wine Connoisseur.
Maybe. She deserves better. That's it. That's all.
Yes.
After Gabe.
Smelly Gabe.
She deserves
Smelly
anything.
Gabe.
Yes.
Gotta call him his full legal name here on the pod.
Yes.
But you're right. After Smelly Gabe, she needs not smelly Mr. Blowfish. What's his first name? I've already forgotten. Pete? Paul?
Paul.
Maybe we need aromatic Paul to offset Smelly Gabe.
He is a blowfish. Sorry.
Now, Percy says that he doesn't remember falling asleep, but he does remember the dream. Dream time, of course, because it's the end of a chapter and nice things happened, so we have to counteract a nice thing with a terrible dream. Percy's back in the creepy cave from before. Annabeth is kneeling under a pile of boulders. Her legs are trembling. She is too tired to even cry out for help, and Percy consents that soon she'll run out of strength and be crushed. Now, Percy hears a non-Kronos male voice that says, "How is our mortal guest?" But Percy, as the narrator, then clarifies that this voice is deeper and lower than the voice that we've heard from Kronos. And I had always interpreted it as a deep voice, but I have to change. We get a new description of Kronos' voice. Quote, Kronos' voice was raspy and metallic, like a knife scraped across stone. I'd heard it taunting me many times before in my dreams, but this voice was deeper and lower, like a bass guitar. Its force made the ground vibrate. So I need to recalibrate my voices. All the voices I've done for Kronos are now for this person, and I need to get like a raspier kind of thing going on for Kronos.
Perfect.
It makes me feel like that for Kronos or for this guy, one of the two should definitely be played by Patrick Page, who's the actor who does Hades in Hadestown. And I believe he's on the original cast recording, so you don't need to see the show to hear it. But that guy's voice is just...
Yes.
It's so deep and so raspy at the same time. It doesn't sound real. It sounds like he's doing vocal effects, but it's authentic. It's astonishing.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever heard it, but he just said this really deep, like, little girl. But it's like that does not service at all.
Yes, only in audio form. I only listen to Hadestown. So yeah, I know the guy.
It's so good. God, he's so good.
It's so different to everything.
Mm-hmm.
His voice is just incredible.
I've literally heard nothing like it. It's so unique, but so perfect. Just so perfect for the role of Hades.
Yes.
Luke runs up to Annabeth. He turns to the unseen man and says, "She's fading. We must hurry." The voice chuckles, and a meaty hand pushes Artemis, whose feet and hands are locked in celestial bronze chains, towards Annabeth. Her dress is torn and tattered, and she's got cuts all over, and she's bleeding ichor. So this is bad, especially when you remember she's in the form of a kid. The Shadow Man commands her to decide, and then her eyes fill with anger. Percy wonders why she doesn't use magic to get out of this, and then thinks it must be something about the chains or the location where she can't utilize her full godlike powers. Artemis looks at Annabeth and becomes concerned and outraged and asks them how dare they torture a maiden like this. And Luke says she will die soon, but Artemis can save her. Annabeth makes a weak sound of protest, trying to say, "No, don't save me, it's okay." And that just makes Percy feel absolutely gutted, as he wishes he could run up to help her, but he cannot move. Artemis tells Luke to free her hands, and he does so with Backbiter. Ew, gross, the worst name sword ever. Artemis runs over to Annabeth and takes on the burden of the boulders, and the Shadow Man says, "You are as predictable as you were easy to beat, Artemis." And Artemis says that he surprised her and it won't happen again, and he agrees because now she's out of the way for good, and that he knew she couldn't resist helping a young maiden since it's her specialty. And I don't want to hand it over to him, but it is a smart strategy.
He played them very, very good.
Mm-hmm. He then tells Luke that he can kill Annabeth, but Luke tries to say that she could still be useful as bait. And the Shadow Man laughs and asks if Luke really believes that. And Luke says yes, because he thinks that people will want to come to save Annabeth. And then he calls this guy General, which makes sense. I didn't think about it. And of course, I knew the answer. But earlier when you were saying, what do you think he's like? And I was saying he commands people. I mean, yeah, kind of, I'm starting to understand the name, even though I don't really know what this guy's vibe is, or if it's some Greek figure that I should know about, but I don't know about because I didn't take any Greek mythological-based courses in school at any point in time. The general says that the Dracani can guard her here until the winter solstice, but after that, if the sacrifice goes as planned, her life and all mortal lives will be meaningless, so they'll kill her. Super intense. I don't really know what they're planning, but yikes.
No comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's all you can say. The tough job of a TNO guest. Artemis tells the general that he will never find the monster he seeks. And then he scoffs and says that her hunters are already beginning their quest, playing right into his hands. He must ensure that their quest is ... challenging. So I'm guessing he's in charge of the things that they're going to face along the way. And then he laughs, which starts shaking the room, but Percy awakens to a loud banging. And he grabs Riptide, swings open the door, and it's the Black Pegasus from the last book, which I was very excited about. I really hoped that she would come back, and she's back. She's here. And we also learn that her name is Blackjack. Fun!
Here, Rick actually changed it because she's not a she anymore.
Oh, okay.
She's a he now.
Oh.
So... And he said this on an interview one time, that he know that he changed it without noticing from book to book. And it's something that happens. It's not like a writings error or whatever. He forgot that he wrote it first as a mare and now it's a stallion, I guess. It's a horse. Now it's a male horse. So yes.
I will keep to my true form, which is when I first met Blackjack. She was a she. So I'm going to keep calling Blackjack she, unless it becomes plot relevant to where it really matters. But I would guess if Rick forgot, it didn't matter.
We said with my friends one time that we thought probably Blackjack was transgender or something like that, because we read it like that. Because she was a she and now he's a he, and he's more comfortable being a he, at least in my perspective. So it's interesting.
You know what? Maybe that's what it is. And yeah, I don't want to use the wrong pronouns for Blackjack. So maybe because clearly what we gather from this is that Percy and Blackjack have talked in between since they last met. So yeah, you know what? Let's go with that. Blackjack was a she. Now Blackjack uses he, him pronouns. Boom. Trans icon Blackjack.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, the first thing that happens when Percy opens the door is he hears in his brain, since he can telepathically talk to horses, he hears Blackjack say, "Whoa, boss, I don't want to be a horse kebab." And at first I thought Blackjack is a very northeastern New York type of calling him boss, but actually he's calling him boss in the boss sense, and Percy has to say, "Please stop calling me boss."
I also read Blackjack as a New York person, New York citizen, I don't know. And also, he has an accent. I read that most of the time when Blackjack talks to, well, not talks, but speaks to Percy. Mm-hmm. He has a very particular way to say things. And for me, it's like reading someone from New York or from New Jersey, probably.
Yeah. Yes. I can see it. I totally get it. Especially starting with a whoa. Like, yeah, I get it. So when Percy tells Blackjack that it's the middle of the night, he says it's 5 a.m. and wonders why Percy is still asleep. And my bigger question here, not necessarily wondering why 5 a.m. is a normal time to be awake, how does the horse know how to tell time?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is it just a sense thing? Is it some sort of Greek power? Is there a clock in the cabin and the horse can read clocks?
Maybe. In the stables, he has a clock.
Who taught the horse how to tell time? Anyway, Percy tells him to stop calling him boss, to which Blackjack replies, "Whatever you say, boss," which is perfect. Narrator Percy reveals the origin of Blackjack to anyone unaware, and then says that Blackjack credits Percy with saving him, even though he didn't really do it. He kind of did, but not fully. But regardless, Blackjack is giving all the credit to Percy, so they feel indebted to Percy. Percy tells him that he's supposed to stay in the stables, but he replies and asks, "Is Chiron in the stables?" Which is a very good point. Blackjack, well played.
Yeah.
He tells Percy that there's another sea friend that needs his help, and Blackjack told the hippocampi that he'd come get Percy. And I thought, oh, cool, a fun little side quest. And narrator Percy does not feel the same. He says, quote, I groaned. Anytime I was anywhere near the beach, the hippocampi would ask me to help them with their problems, and they had a lot of problems. Beached whales, porpoises caught in fishing nets, mermaid with hangnails. They'd call me to come underwater and help. And I thought, look, you can't be upset if this means more rainbow. We all love rainbow. Come on, Percy.
And he's the son of Poseidon. What else can you do? You're the only one.
Look, man, sometimes it comes with the territory. You just got to help him out. And as we'll see, because I did read the beginning of chapter 8, when you come in to help, you're in and you're out, and it's really not that big of a deal. It's a pretty quick situation.
Yep.
Percy looks back at his cabin and he sees the busted shield and he sees Annabeth's cap and he snags Annabeth's cap instinctively and then reflects a bit as narrator Percy saying, I guess I had a feeling even then that I wasn't coming back to my cabin for a long, long time. And I wrote in my notes, okay, you said that last time though, and then you were only gone for 10 days, which is, I guess, a long time, but not a long, long time. So I don't know, maybe Percy will be back in a week after the solstice? Like, maybe it'll be 8 days or something if we're doing Thalia's birthday. Okay, cool. No, long, long time. Maybe if you're a teenager, that's an eternity, but yes. I don't know. So really quickly, let's just do the beginning of chapter 8 for this rescue mission that takes place. Chapter 8 is called, I Make a Dangerous Promise. My guess is that whoever he helps out sends him on a quest that he will reluctantly agree to and he worries about. Not necessarily the case here. So Blackjack gives Percy a ride down the beach, and as the narrator, Percy admits, it's pretty cool. Flying down the beach on a black Pegasus is a strong look, and you can't argue with that. That's a very, very cool situation.
Yes.
He then has Blackjack kind of hover over the water, and Percy just dives in, plunges deep down into the ocean. Just a very cool vibe from Percy. And while he's doing these cool things, he reveals as the narrator that he's become really comfortable with his powers, and he makes clear what his powers are. He talks about the clothes not getting wet thing and all of that. A new one that we learn is that when he's really deep underwater, he can't necessarily see clearly underwater, but he still knows where things are. So it's like he can sense things, which I think is really cool. And I wonder if this mimics some sort of deep sea animal where, I don't know, maybe fish can't see, but they can perceive. I have no idea how this all works, but I just thought it was a really cool description from Percy. He sees the 3 hippocampi around what is the issue, and there is a boat that has an animal wedged underneath it, and it's tangled up in a fishing net. And the animal apparently tried to get loose, but it only made things worse, so now it's really tied up in this net and caught under this shipping vessel. The hippocampi want to help, but they aren't sure how, so they ask Percy just, hey, help us, when he comes, and they call him Lord. So he's been called boss, he's been called Lord, everyone is deferring to Percy. Now, when Percy gets closer, he hears a moo and reveals that it is a sea cow, but it is a sea cow, where the front half is the cow, the back half is a serpent. All heroes! But the hippocampi reveal that they don't know what it is either, which I think is very interesting. I'm very intrigued to know what this is. I don't know if there is a mythological animal that is half cow, half serpent. I feel like it might be a thing. I don't think that's what a kelpie is, because I feel like a kelpie is more of like what a hippocampus is.
I think a kelpie is just a horse.
Right.
A
green I think it's just horse. Like a water horse.
Yes, a water horse.
So I don't really know. We'll see. Maybe we'll learn about this person later, but I'm intentionally not Googling it in case this creature comes back. Mm-hmm. But at the very least, if I don't learn who the heck this is by the end of the book, I'll ask Dr. Moya, hello, half cow, half serpent? ?
It's a cow. Leave it there.
So the hippocampi reveal they don't know what this is. They say strange things are murmuring, and Percy goes, oh, tell me about it. And he then uncaps Riptide, which scares the animal, but he tries to assure it that it's just to cut the net and not to hurt it, but it doesn't work. So he puts away the sword, and then he says, it's cool. No sword. See? No sword. Calm thoughts. Seagrass. Mama cows. Vegetarianism. I love when he does this, just appeals to people's interests and just tries to list off anything to put them at ease. Oh, it's so funny. It never fails to make me laugh.
I was very annoyed about the hippocampi because they could translate Percy to the cow, and they didn't. They just got scared. And they know Percy because I guess he helped them before. So they know Percy have a sword. So why don't warn the beast, I guess? I don't know.
You're right. Because I was thinking, they're not warning him. Maybe they can't speak with the cow, but how else would they have told Percy what went wrong unless they saw the entire thing happen?
Probably. I don't know. That's the thing.
So that's the only thing, but you could be right here where the simple solution is...
At least don't panic, I guess. Percy, so...
At least don't panic, but you got to play the mediator here. You got to be the translator, be the interpreter between whatever the heck you are and Percy.
Yes.
So Percy calls for the hippocampi to help him push the wreckage, and the three of them are able to, with the power of, and as narrator Percy, he says, with the strength of 3 horsepower, we managed to shift the wreckage so it was no longer threatening to collapse on the baby cow serpent. The 3 horsepower line is so funny.
Yes.
And as he's saving this thing, Percy keeps giving it new qualities. He's decided that it's a girl. He's decided that its name is Bessie. And after naming it Bessie, he kind of turns to us, breaking the fourth wall that's really already broken, but really kind of drops everything and goes, don't ask me why I've decided these things.
Yes.
It was really, really funny. Then we learned that this whole thing took an entire hour, and he swims back up, goes and returns to Blackjack, explains what happens, and then they fly back to Camp Half-Blood. And at this point, we will stop this episode of the Newest Olympian, and we will pick it up next time. But Sarah, thank you so much for joining and talking about this pretty intense chapter. Lots of feelings and emotions and setting the stage for what's to come in the rest of the book. A lot going on.
Yes, this book is intense and it's getting worse.
Every chapter has been truly intense. We haven't had a chill chapter yet. A lot of things happening. I'm very excited to keep reading. But if people are looking to see or hear more stuff from you in the meantime, before the next episode of TNO comes out, where can they find you?
Well, you can look for my artwork on any social media. Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and my Ko-Fi are all at Held Red Sky. So you can find everything related to any type of art that I do, because I don't only draw Percy Jackson, I do other stuff. Or if you want to listen to my voice in Chilean Spanish, because it's very difficult and very different, you can listen to my podcast, Erosgrafía. We talk about Percy Jackson and we rereading the books and we compare them to the translations and other stuff.
Fantastic.
But we are all caught up, so we are having a lot of spoilers. So it's better to not listen if you are not caught up.
Thank you for the warning. Yes. And no Novos Novosotros on this podcast. Is it
No. A lot of cursing, but in Chilean. So and a lot of slang too. So it's very, very difficult to listen.
It's a cultural experience in addition to a Percy Jackson experience.
It's a challenge. If you know Spanish and you want to challenge yourself, you can listen to us talking in Chilean.
Amazing. Who doesn't love a good challenge? Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining. This was great. I'm very excited for everyone to see your incredible poster artwork once it is complete. We're recording this on August 3rd, and it's in the works from the initial sketches. I'm super stoked, and you can get those at the live show in New York City on August 24th. But thank you again for joining. Listeners, thanks for listening. And until we find out if anything else is going on back at camp now with our new friend Blackjack, until we figure out what's going on, I'll see you later. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the website and the social media. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you're all caught up in the show and you simply cannot get enough, fear not, because there are multiple ways that you can get more TNO into your life. First, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon and get access to all sorts of bonus content, from bonus episodes to director's commentary to physical merch like pins and stickers and so much more. There's also TNO live shows, so you can see if we're coming to a city near you or if we're doing a stream show, which we are in the very near future, if you go to thenewestolympian.com/live. And you can also find us on social media at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or on Reddit at reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. Huge thanks to all of our producer level patrons: Lotta Bartova, Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Emma Cooey, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Tough Beifong, Moo Productions, Olivia Y, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Can't I See Weed Brain, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Heather McMillan, Casey Williams, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Bridget Lowry, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Wise Girl, Ashton Gabrielson, Colby, Marco Redhouse, Falcon Joey, James, Christopher William Boucher, Lux, Caden Max, Sam Reeby, Carly Allen, Riley Kitas, Mary Kelly, Audra McKenzie, Mrs. O'Leary, Aaron Wood, Tyler Hendricks, Molly Snyder, Rodith Kalna, Milo Kim, Fred Cabras, Harlan Christ, CC Reeds 23, Sandkopf, Julia Kendall, Emil Oscar Thomason, Noah Bundgaard, and Liz Cardigan. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, you can do so by getting the word out. You can talk about the show on social media, or you could think of someone that you know who would love this show. Maybe they're a big Percy Jackson fan. Maybe there's someone who's looking for that push to get them to begin reading the books. Whatever it is, if you recommend the show directly to someone, that would help so much. Or you could leave a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. Anything really does help, and I appreciate anyone who has done this or decides to do so in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you listened to this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode, where we'll be covering the rest of Chapter 8 and a good chunk of Chapter 9 with repeat guest Bobby Wagner. But until then, I'll see you later. Hello, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. What I'm going to be doing for this ASMR Mike segment is I'm actually going to turn on something that I turned off so that the audio for the mid-roll break and everything would sound nicer. I'm currently in my bedroom, which does have a window AC unit, but for some ASMR, we're going to just see how that sounds when I turn it on. So I'm going to roll my rolly chair over to the unit. I'm also going to make sure that I don't drop any of my equipment from my microphone setup. And now I will turn on the air conditioner, and we'll see how this sounds. You heard the beep there. It is now turning on. I will play around with some of the buttons. This is it on auto and econ mode. What if I put it on to fan only? Ooh, now it's on fan only and low. You may be able to hear the fan intensity reduce. Now let's put it on cool mode and the fan speed at high. Oh, look how intense it is. And now I'll put it back to econ and fan speed to auto and turn it off. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this unique segment. Have a good day.